Hey, welcome to EPN. My name is Victor Lucas. We bring you the latest in everything cool every single day, and the first official day of E3 has begun. We have a ton of stuff to talk about. Let's get started with the rundown. Sony had their annual E3 press conference last night, and it was by far the biggest of the show. No, they didn't announce the rumored PlayStation Neo, so instead they showed off a slew of cool new games that put the other publishers to shame. First up, there's an all-new God of War game, simply titled God of War, that stars an older and bearded version of Kratos, who's now the father of a young son. It looks like it will offer everything we want from a PS4 God of War game, complete with all the dynamic beard whiskers we could ask for. No release window yet for that, so don't expect to play it for at least a year or two. My spidey senses are tingling because Sunset Overdrive developer Insomniac Games is working on a new Spider-Man project for the PS4. It looks awesome, like a modern version of the classic Spidey games for the PS2, and it will tell an original story not based on the new movie. That swings into our lives next year. One game that practically brought the house down is Death Stranding, a new game from Metal Gear Solid creator Hideo Kojima. This is his first project since his much-publicized split with Konami, and it's being published by Sony. It stars The Walking Dead's Norman Reedus, and we don't know too much about it other than the fact that it will have some trippy and haunting imagery. Reedus and Kojima had been working on the horror game Silent Hills, but that was canceled during the Konami split. Speaking of which, if Konami doesn't want Silent Hills, it looks like their rival Capcom does. They announced the surprise new game Resident Evil 7, fully playable on the PlayStation VR headset, and it clearly has more in common with the canceled Silent Hills than the recent Resident Evil games. It looks terrifying, and the worst part is, in VR, you can't look away. That arrives January 24th, and a free demo is available right now for PS Plus subscribers. The PlayStation VR itself launches October 13th, and Sony spent a good deal of time talking about many of the games that are coming to the device, and boy, do they have us excited. Naturally, we can't wait to play Batman Arkham VR, an exclusive game that lets you play as Batman in VR. Enough said. There's also a Star Wars Battlefront X-Wing game, along with a Final Fantasy 15 spin-off and a sci-fi shooter called Farpoint. Did we mention that there's a Batman VR game on the way? I can't wait! Next up, zombies are back, loads more zombies. Siphon Filter developer Ben's Studio unveiled Days Gone, a post-apocalyptic game that looks like it has more zombies on screen than we've ever seen before. Wow, that's actually what it looked like trying to get into the Sony press conference. It's good to know that even in the apocalypse, barrels still blow up when you shoot them. No release window for Days Gone yet. Something that does finally have a release date is The Last Guardian. It will arrive October 25th, more than 7 years after it was first announced. Better late than never. As for games that we've already seen, Horizon Zero Dawn got a demo on stage that has us excited for its February 28th release. Heavy Rain developer Quantic Dream showed off new footage of their robot drama, Detroit Become Human. Like their previous games, every choice you make will change the outcome of the story. Finally, if you're looking for some old-school action, Sony is working on a remastered edition of the first 3 Crash Bandicoot games, and Crash will also appear in the new Skylanders game, Imaginators, coming this fall. Looks like Sony may have won E3 with all of their awesome game announcements, but Ubisoft had a few of their own. The publisher held their annual press conference yesterday. The first thing they talked about is Just Dance 2017, but we're not going to waste time on that. Ghost Recon Wildlands has a release date. You'll be able to take on South American drug cartels starting March 7th, with Ubisoft promising that this is their biggest open-world game ever. The new South Park game, The Fractured But Whole, also has a release date, December 6th. It comes with a free copy of the last game, The Stick of Truth, for those of you who missed it or just want to play it again. Ubisoft wants in on the VR craze. They showed off 2 new virtual reality games. The first is called Eagle Flight and lets you and your friends take flight as an eagle. The second is Star Trek Bridge Crew, allowing you and your friends to take control of the bridge of the Enterprise. Both of them are co-op, and the prospect of co-op in VR has us very intrigued. They arrive later this year. Tom Clancy's The Division is getting a first round of DLC called Underground, launching first on the Xbox One on June 28th as a timed exclusive and August 2nd for the PS4. A second round of DLC called Survival was also unveiled, but there's no release date yet for that. The PS4 isn't being left out of that timed exclusivity game, though. The first DLC for Watch Dogs 2 will land on the console 30 days before everywhere else. The game itself hacks into stores on November 15th. The melee combat game For Honor will bring the battle home on February 14th. The perfect Valentine's Day gift, right, honey? And Ubisoft showed off the game's story mode for the first time. Last year's robot adventure Grow Home is getting a sequel called Grow Up, bringing the physics-based platforming to new heights. That arrives in August. If you're looking for something a little more unusual, Trials of the Blood Dragon is a combination of Far Cry Blood Dragon and the Trials series. Ubisoft saved their biggest E3 reveal for last. They're working on an open-world alpine sports game called Steep. It looks like the SSX sequel I've always wanted. It gives players an open-world winter wonderland to speed around in. That lands in December, just in time for the real snow to start falling. All these new titles from Ubisoft look pretty cool. This comes as Ubisoft is fighting off a hostile takeover attempt by entertainment giant Vivendi. It remains to be seen how that will play out, but we wish all of our friends at Ubi the best of luck. Last and least, the final publisher to make their E3 announcements was Nintendo. As promised, they really only showed off a mere 2 games today. The new Zelda for the Wii U and NX, and Pokemon Sun and Moon for the 3DS. Once again to Zelda, the new game is called The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild and will be the biggest and most open-ended Zelda adventure yet. Players will have the ability to decide which areas to explore and which dungeons to take on in their own order, giving them the most freedom that they've ever had since the original Zelda game for the NES. You'll be able to climb up walls and hunt animals for the first time, and this is also the first Zelda game to feature voice acting.
That is a Sheikah slate. Take it.
I've always wondered what Link's voice would sound like. Breath of the Wild hits the Wii U and NX early next year as a launch title for the new console. Now to catch Pokemon, Nintendo showed off a new battle mode for Pokemon Sun and Moon, with players competing against each other to defeat the other's Pokemon. And that's kind of it. The new games launch on November 18th. With just 2 new games shown off, Nintendo's E3 presentation was significantly scaled down this year, which is a shame considering that they have a new console on the way. They've promised to show off the NX with a full unveiling later this year, which will hopefully be enough to give the system and its games the attention they deserve. And that wraps us up for the rundown. Thanks for watching, everybody. Make sure you stay tuned to our channels all week long. We're going to have lots of great E3 coverage for you, including my hands-on impressions of all the games I get to play. I know I'm so lucky. See you tomorrow. Hey, thanks for checking out that video on our EPN channel. It's just one small part of the things that we make around here. So if you liked it, don't forget to check out some of our other vids and hit that subscribe button.